Howdy guys, this is John Tilley, the CEO of Zon Guru in Los Angeles, and welcome to another episode of Amazon Seller Insights. If you guys aren't familiar, this is a podcast where we interview experts and we're really here just to learn from them and use that information for our own Amazon businesses. And today I'm super excited for this one. Before I introduce this guy with an awesome name, John, I'm going to just talk a little bit about, the Amazon journey. And I think one of the most critical things in an Amazon journey is building your business to sell. And we always talk about selling your business as it being your first entrepreneur birthday. It's the time you can sell your first business and hopefully set you up for financial freedom. And truly selling a business sets you up for that in a big way. And that's exactly what John did. So we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about building an Amazon business, tips and tricks around how to build it to sell it, and dive through that journey. So I talked a little bit much there before introducing you, John, but welcome, John Elder.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
Yeah, all the way from Dallas.
Yes.
Yeah. So, this is going to be an exciting one to dive into. And, what I'd like to cover, I think, in the next while is really, your insights around what you did successfully with your business to build it on Amazon, and then most importantly, some of your key insights around what you learned when you set it up for sale, and what were some of the key things that maybe you should have done earlier. What are the things that you did right, did wrong, and just to really paint that vision, because so many of us are just really focused on like, hey, let's sell products and get cash flow on Amazon, which is absolutely amazing to be able to do that. Yeah. But if we can shift our mindsets to, hey, this is a great start to building a proper brand and business that is a true asset, that is sellable and built in a way that is sellable and easy for someone to take on and run, that is going to be unbelievable in terms of creating a successful business and something that's going to create financial wealth. So I'd like to cover a little bit of that, but I think let's start with, when did you start and what was that journey like?
Yeah. So, my story is kind of unique in the sense of I thought I was going to be in, my industry, which was construction management for years. The typical path was, move up to an executive position that typically takes roughly 20 years to get there. And I didn't want to wait around that long for that type of income to come in. So I had to start thinking about, building a business on my own that would revolutionize my income. And so so it started out as a side gig, but it always had a long-term vision of growing to something large someday. So in 2014, I started researching, and Amazon FBA kept popping up all over the internet on blogs. And in 2014, it was still kind of it was kind of a newer type concept back then. It was starting to really gain some traction, obviously, because so many people are writing about it. But I was really hesitant because I'm like, there's no way that people are making all this money. It's got to be Amazon, right? And then I realized, these are third-party sellers. It kind of blew my mind a little bit that people were selling products that they didn't even go overseas to go look at their products. They ordered everything and shipped it directly to Amazon. So I was just absolutely amazed. So I did a ton of research and used some of my own money to launch my first product. And I'm still, at that time, I'm still working at my day job. So that was a pretty intense job. And so this is, spending a lot of time, on lunch breaks and after work at home. So there's some sacrifice there in terms of time investment. And so I launched into a golfing category and just pursued a product that I had interest in. I grew up golfing. So there's kind of a natural interest that I had.
What's your handicap?
Sorry, what's that?
What's your handicap?
Oh man. Yeah. I'm not going to tell you. and so it was a cleaning tool for golf clubs. And,
oh, wow.
And, it's kind of like, okay, that's kind of a boring idea, but I went into it wanting to kind of revolutionize that product. There's like maybe 5 sellers at the time. And I wanted to, add some new features, drastically improve the product packaging and kind of create an experience for golfers. And so that ended up being successful. So within a year, I was the #1 seller and ended up using the the same factory without knowing about it, who supplies the golfing supplies for the PGA Tour. So then that also reminded me about how small the world is.
Mm.
And so that became really successful. Ended up having 7 different variations on that listing and became the authority for that category. So that led into other products. And in that first year, I didn't have a good sense of branding yet. And so I was literally launching the most random products all over the map. I mean, I was in the art category and the outdoor category and the sporting goods category, and I didn't have a strong sense of branding, which is really important. And so over the next couple of years, I ditched some of my products because it was sucking up a lot of my capital, and really focused on my top earners and started focusing on the branding aspect, getting all the trademarks, getting design patents, and just focusing on different product lines within that brand, and then creating the Amazon store page. I ended up doing video content, and then overhauling everything with pictures, including models, like actually using my products. And then that led to kind of like a peak where it was time to reach out to a broker, and that was 2018. And that was kind of a surreal moment when I got my just market valuation for my business back from the broker. And it was, it lined up with my original vision number. So when I first started this business, I had a goal of, it was a really lofty number. It was a mid 7-figure number, and I wanted to achieve it someday. And it was, it was now there right in front of me with the broker, and I couldn't believe it. And so, signed up with a broker. I actually interviewed a couple brokers, ended up with going with a top firm out of New York, and then ended up selling my business. That process took 5 to 6 months. It was an interesting journey with the banks. One of the banks completely pulled out of the deal, and I thought the deal was squashed. And then the buyer just really wanted to buy my business and found a second alternative bank. Press forward and had a really successful exit. And I'm actually right now still in the 12-month training contract with my buyer.
So there was kind of an earn-out at the end, or a contract.
I actually have a 5-year earn-out, and there's a seller's note, and then the rest was in cash. Like roughly 70% was cash up front. But the training aspect is really interesting because a lot of people don't realize that the earn-out is tied to them hitting a milestone for net profit each quarter. And so that was kind of like a negotiated number. And so that number was a fair number, for both parties. And they're hitting it now. So that's really exciting to see that all the training paid off for them, because this buyer, to be honest with you, they came in with 0% Amazon experience. And I mean 0%. And as a husband and wife team, they did get all of my employees. So that was a really smooth transition for them. But it was a task to train them up from 0% to running a multi-million-dollar business. Mm-hmm. And now they're very successful right now, which is good for everybody because now I get my earn out.
Yeah. Wow, man, what a story. And so much to unpack there. How much did you originally invest?
I was right around 5,000.
So you started with 5,000 in capital. Did you take any more cash on, or was that, was it basically 5,000?
So not in the beginning. In the beginning, it was just did a small 250 unit test order for that golfing product. All profits just constantly reinvested into the business that first year, just because I didn't need the money at the time. Sure. I have a really great job, and I wanted to kind of grow the business quickly. And over time in the second year, started reaching out to companies like Cabbage. If people don't know, it's a really, well, I think they got bought out recently, but it was a really easy way to get up to 100,000 in credit line. And then worked with Chase Bank to get a pretty healthy credit line set up with them. And then I did, actually most of my capital came from Amazon lending.
Yeah. So, but in effect, you started with a $5,000 capital raise that you got, right? Investments. And through that, you know, putting your money back into your business, you grew that. Obviously, you got some credit lines and stuff like that, but ultimately, you know, the initial investment was 5K, and you built this multi-million-dollar business. And that's just, you know, that's exactly why everyone should be doing an Amazon business, because it is such an amazing way to build cash flow
Yeah.
up front
Yeah.
first, and obviously a business. So I think that's critical. I think what also popped out for me is that vision that you had for your number, and writing that down. And I, you know, every single person who's successful, somewhere in their story, they talk about a number they wrote down, and for whatever reason, they hit that exact number. So
Yeah.
that's a telling sign for many people. You know,
Yeah.
make sure you write down your number and envision it. I think that's amazing. I think your point on you know, actually having a PGA verified manufacturer, and that you could actually find the product there is a really good insight, because, you know, there is no excuse not to be able to compete with top level brands over time, you know.
Yeah. Not anymore. Yeah, exactly.
And you have
Yeah.
all the resources, you have all the connections. As you said, it's a small world, you know, so aim for that, and set your standards at that level. You know, when you're
Yep.
creating your brand, you know, envision that against the biggest in the space, because that's what it's going to become, you know, if you
Definitely.
face that. And then, yeah, I think, you know, this idea that you sold to a husband and wife is exactly the kind of target market. There are so many, I mean, there's different kinds of buyers out there, but there are people in, you know, further on in life who have some capital, and they see this as a true investment that they can grow over time, and create that you know, passive style investment income. It's not passive, but you know, build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this buyer was unique in the sense of they were entrepreneurs already, so they had a staffing company that was very successful and they sold. But this was a pretty high up executive at a software company, you know. So he had his day job and he had no interest in quitting his day job. This was just another stream of income for them, and their goal is to flip the business in 5 years and sell it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So they were transparent from day one. And, you know, there's a little heartburn involved there because there's so much passion and energy built into the business and the branding and the mission statements for a lot of the products that you're handing it over to someone that wants to flip your business. So you kind of have to, some people would never sell, you know, if they knew that. You know, for me, it was the right decision, but it was a little emotional, just knowing that, you know, all that time and effort, it's going to be flipped, you know, and it's going to have multiple owners, you know, throughout its life. So it's kind of weird how that works with exits.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I think there's an amazing goal in hitting that. And as you build these businesses, you can let that one free and see how it goes. And obviously it sounds like it's doing great. And then build others, right? And I think those opportunities are there. So, you know, the one point I want to get across is that there is absolutely massive interest in funds, in individuals, in kind of buying these businesses, because they are so palatable, right? It's a business that is run by a few people, that is doing multi-million, you know, figures in revenue, and it's got SOPs that you can take over, and kind of run. And to your point, you know, you don't have to see the manufacturers, you don't have to see the end customer, and you can build this business. So you know, there's a lot of interest in these. And you know, in your research, you don't have to say your exact multiple, but what was the range of multiples that they were basing it on, and was it on revenue or was it on net profit in terms of the multiple?
It's based on the net profit of your business. So the buyers, they want to see your previous 2 tax returns. And so this gets into actually a really great conversation of how to properly set up your business from day one. You know, they didn't want to see any commingled businesses. They wanted to see one LLC. They had no interest in buying the LLC. None of the potential buyers that I spoke with wanted the LLC. So these were all asset sales. And so if anyone listening doesn't understand that, it's basically buying all of my inventory, all my brands, all my intellectual property, but not buying my LLC. So, you know, I kept the LLC, and they got everything else. They want, you know, clean bookkeeping. They want to see, you know, your 12-month of financial statements, your profit loss statements. So clean bookkeeping from day one, you know, regular tax returns, those are all things that a buyer wants to see. And a lot of people don't realize this, but your tax return is extremely important because especially if you're dealing with an SBA bank, they are going to want to see those 2 tax years. And if you don't have those, man, your multiple is either going to be really, really small, like in the twos, or it's going to be zero because no bank's going to want to lend. So that was thanks to just a fantastic CPA. So all my bookkeeping was done through my CPA, and then all the taxes were done through him. But just keeping clean books and running, one Amazon account. Some people get paranoid and they want like multiple Amazon accounts. For me, I was the opposite. Having multiple Amazon accounts made me paranoid. So I kept, all 5 brands under one Amazon account.
Amazing. And which brand did you end up keeping? Was it the golfing brand or
No, I sold all the brands.
Yeah, but you were talking about the number of products that you were launching, and you were going to different categories, and then you consolidated under one brand. What brand did you go with? Was it the golfing brand?
Oh yeah. So the 5 brands that I ended up keeping, because I had I had up to 8 brands, and it was just way too many, and I wanted to kind of like re-strategize with capital investments. And I was in men's leather goods. I was in outdoor kids toys, which that brand was inspired by my newborn son at the time. Office supplies, had some really awesome products that sold well. And I think I mentioned sporting goods, and then golfing category.
Okay, so there were 4. So when you sold the company, there were 4 or 5 actual brands in different categories that you had under that one business. Correct. Yeah, amazing. And that you can speak to this, but I'm assuming that someone who was looking to buy your business, because you had multiple brands in multiple categories, that was more palatable or more interesting because your risk was diversified, right?
Correct. And that's one of the things that they ask, like from the very beginning, is show me your revenue spread across your brands. And then they actually want to see within each brand, they want to see what that revenue looks like on a per product listing basis. And so I had a couple home runs, but I had a pretty even spread of revenue. And they want to see that because they want to buy a business with one listing that's doing really well, and then 25 listings that are complete garbage. That's not a strong business from a buyer's perspective. So that was a really important thing to get right. And I didn't do that on purpose per se. Just I think over time and having multiple successful products in those brands kind of naturally caused that even spread of revenue.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about the brokerage process, because did you go into that like, hey, okay, I'm kind of getting ready, I want to see if there's interested in selling it, let me find a broker, and that whole process? Because I'm sure through that, the negotiations around the sale, legal counsel, those are probably all things that came up, and you're probably like, oh man, I need to like figure this out, so how did they help in that guidance around legal counsel and stuff, or did you get your own lawyer? How did that all work?
Yeah, so the process is kind of, it was an education experience for myself, but they actually help you a lot. Like there's some really great brokers out there. The broker I worked with, they kind of assist you. They actually find you your buyer. So, they screened roughly 50 people. And then I get on the phone and do the interviews with the potential buyer. Once an offer is made, then you have, as a business owner, you have to kind of decide, if the offer is fair, and negotiate a little bit. There's some back and forth on that number. And then once we agreed between the two parties, you go into what it's called a due diligence phase. And so you don't need your independent lawyer set up yet. This is where you give complete unfettered access to your Amazon business, and this third party due diligence person goes into your Amazon account and reviews all the financial reports from Amazon to make sure that you're not lying. So they get, read-only access. That can be up to like almost like a 2-week phase of just verifying all the data. And so a lot of that you don't see as a seller. That's a conversation between the due diligence officer and the buyer of the business. Once you get to the next step, which is all the financing and contracts and things like that, that's where your lawyer comes in. So you do want to have a lawyer you trust. And so I actually did not use a lawyer that the broker recommended. I used a lawyer that my friend used on his exit, who he trusted, and he was great. He goes to bat for you pretty much, and he reviews every little word in each contract and makes sure that nothing fishy is going on. And then he also represents you with negotiations on the final details for things like your non-compete clause. So, for example, the first draft of the non-compete was like, you're never allowed to sell in the golfing category for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pushed back on that and said, that's not fair. I think what's fair, and I was talking to my lawyer about this, and, my idea of fair would be, okay, I won't compete with that specific product,
Mm-hmm.
golfing category, but I want to be able to, maybe sell a golfing product that's different, but in the golfing category. And so we finally got to a point where the lawyers all, agreed on that language, and then the contracts get updated. But to properly negotiate that, you need a strong lawyer on your side. And then the last probably 20% of the exit, you go through a lot of closeout docs. This is all managed and done by a lawyer that's jointly hired by myself and the buyer. And that's typically a lawyer that's recommended by the broker. And so that closing lawyer just wraps up like all the documents. And there's, oh my gosh, I felt like it was more paper than a mortgage. But you do all of your electronic signatures, and then it gets you to your closeout date. And then once you see the check come in to your checking account, you right away, you go into your Amazon account and you switch over user access to the buyer, and then you're now just a read only. You basically you boot yourself out of your business, and then now you're not a business owner anymore within seconds. So it's kind of a weird feeling.
So what did you do? How did you celebrate, or did you celebrate?
Oh man, the typical stuff. My wife and son, we just, had an awesome dinner. We went out, champagne. It took us easily a month to kind of realize what had happened.
Sure.
Both my wife and I come from very modest backgrounds. So for us to have that type of money is just, it's something you only dreamed of. And so, just, paid off some debt, paid off some of the mortgage, did some boring stuff like index funds. But other than that, I'm pretty conservative. Nothing too crazy. So
that's amazing, man. Yeah. What a cool story. And, to have that moment where I think you probably felt like, hands down, no matter what, I can take care of my family is the first and foremost amazing point to get to, and that's what you achieved, which is awesome. So congratulations. I guess the question I have is, if you have anything, what in the contract negotiation would you change now based on 2020 hindsight, like looking back, like, is there anything you would have changed?
No, to be honest with you, I wouldn't go back and change anything per se. It's
even the earnout, you wouldn't change that?
What's that?
Even the earnout, you wouldn't have changed that?
The earnout was not like a substantial amount. And so that actually, COVID actually helped the buyer of the business.
Yeah.
So for me, COVID was a good thing.
Yeah.
But the earnout, earnouts are pretty common with e-commerce exits. So it's just a matter of, kind of negotiating down to a number you're comfortable with. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily change any of the numbers or the earnout or the language. Like, there was hours and hours of going back and forth between lawyers, negotiating all the contract language, that it got to a point where I think everyone felt like it was very fair for both sides. And so because of that, I don't think I could go back and say I want to improve it, just because, I have a good relationship with the buyer, and everyone is very content. So that's a pretty good thing for an exit. Yeah. Amazing.
So I think one of the questions I have, and this is something that I am a little bit passionate about as well, and probably you have some really good insights around this, which is the training, right? And there's got to be some advice there around SOPs and and how to approach creating your business from scratch and getting those in place and ready for the sale? And how much does that help?
Yeah, SOPs, everyone has kind of like a different idea of what that looks like. So for me, we actually had to create some SOPs for the buyer because we, there weren't a lot like actually written down. So
Mm-hmm.
um, another strategy was, with the two employees, they transitioned to the buyer
Oh, yeah,
and
great. Strong.
took all of their knowledge and they were fully trained. So they didn't use an SOP to get trained. They were trained one-on-one, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was just kind of different. Some of the SOPs were written for the buyer, how to properly, set up a listing and things like that. Those are pretty basic things. I know some sellers that go really deep with SOPs. I think SOPs are just like much more useful if you have, even your employees training other employees or just a big network of employees. I actually had less staff because I wanted to keep more of the net profit in the business. So some would say, if you're doing millions and millions of sales each year, having two employees is insanity. I had two just amazing and fully capable employees that took on a lot of work. And so, for example, I never touched logistics and I never touched customer service. So I had zero relationship with my customers at that point. And
Right.
what that allowed me to do was just invest my time with innovation and launching new products, which, that was the original passion of Amazon anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's something that business to business is different. Some businesses, depending on their employee network, SOPs are really important, and then the buyer wants them. My situation was actually kind of weird because the buyer never asked me for SOPs. The SOPs were actually asked by the broker, just to have the SOPs ready to go during the exit.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's listening, if they don't know what SOP is, it's like a standard operating procedure, which is really just an outline of a certain process, right? So that that knowledge base is there on the sale. Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think SOP is going to be taken to the nth detail, and probably not provide much value. But I would say in my kind of experience on this is that 80-20 rule applies, but there's 20% of the SOPs that I think if you can get them in place, it will really be helpful with the sale. To ensure that some really key processes that are massively impactful are documented, and that probably also helps in the earnouts and the training, because you don't have to kind of spend a lot of time on that. Obviously, in your case, it's super helpful to have employees that you can hand over, and continue to run the business for the new buyer. So that's a really insightful, important strategy as well. Is ensure as you build the business that you delegate tasks and you get people with knowledge running those processes that potentially can transfer when you do the sale. So that's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I don't know. I think just reflecting on that whole process, like what are some of the top tips you would give to anyone who is starting on Amazon or is building their business right now around, probably both sections, like how to build your Amazon business for success, and then how to set it up for sale. Like, what are your top 4 tips on that?
Oh man. Top tips. For someone who's starting out on Amazon fresh, you have to really focus on a couple fundamentals. And one big one is your net profit for a product. So you have to do some heavy mathematical calculations for, product research. And you might see, a product that looks really, really great and the revenue is fantastic. But what you might not realize is that they're, getting hit with horrible storage fees and FBA fees, and the product cost is outrageous. So you have to really do research. And this is where you're actually going to be on a site like Alibaba before you're even like sourcing a product yet, is simply getting just estimated quotes from factories. And so there's so much research there that has to be done before you pursue a product. And then when I work with my clients, it's like, always just make it your goal to do 25% net profit minimum on a product, and just, go over the math multiple times just to make sure that you're not like trying to make a product look good to yourself, Because you just, oh man, that's just going to be heartbreaking if you do that. And then you realize 6 months later after selling, oh my gosh, this product is not making me any money. It's just a terrible feeling.
Yeah,
Uh,
important. Sorry, just to jump in there, but I think yeah, net profit 100%. But also, I think sales price is important. And having a minimum
yeah.
threshold of probably over $30, I think is probably where you need to be at to be able to invest your net profit back into the business and build something, right?
Oh
Or if
yeah.
you have a different number.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, over 50 is even better. I mean, my average sell price for products was right around like 50,
Hmm.
and my lowest cost price was like 19.99.
Gotcha.
But man, the margins are so slim on those cheaper products.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just it can really it's painful because if you have to reduce your price to compete with competitors, it's just it's brutal. So yeah, focusing on higher price products that are more higher end is huge. And then obviously there's going to be less competitors because that takes more capital to invest into higher price products.
What else you got?
I always talk about this because it's so important. It's something that I use myself in my business is just to pursue a product that you're genuinely interested in or you have passion in. There are times in just the course of your business where you're going to hit walls and times where you're going to have to be up late at night, working extra hours, and it's going to be in conflict with something you planned, maybe with friends or something. So you need to have some sort of passion behind your product. And so each of my brands and each of the products that I launched, I had at least kind of like a baseline level of interest in something that I was truly passionate about. And one good example is a outdoor kids toy line that I ran. And that was inspired by my son. And the mission statement for that brand was actually, recapturing interest of the great outdoors for kids, just because kids are on technology all the time now.
Mhm.
And that was a really special brand because as reviews came in and you started developing just a loyal customer base, people were just loving the idea of spending more time outdoors with their children. So thinking about a product from a sense of is this going to make an impact? Is this something I'm interested in? Do I have a passion in this product? Is just huge for product research.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think, there's so many products you can choose from out there. So
Yeah,
why not choose something that is of interest to you, right? So that's how I see it. But again, I guess it's just whatever motivates someone. So if you don't care and all you're motivated by is cash, and that's what's going to drive you, then
yeah,
do what you need to do. But most
yeah,
likely, most people, even that, I would say, I would push back on that and say, well, you can make cash and still, be motivated by something that makes an impact or brings interest in some other way. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
also.
I found most people, their reaction is to pursue something that either makes an impact or they're just really passionate about.
Mm.
Very few people I've talked to only care about the money, which is kind of interesting.
I've got a random thought that just came in, but to jump in on your tips. But
No, no worries.
what was the what would you say is probably one of the most impactful things on your multiple that when everyone was looking at the business and they were like,
Ooh,
okay, here's my
yeah,
business. What were they like? Okay, this is what really they were interested in and what drove the multiple up. What was the biggest
yeah.
standout?
Yeah. Okay. So this is people need to listen to this. They don't care about how beautiful your products are. A buyer doesn't care about your packaging or the experience of a customer. They are looking 90% of their time is analyzing your business from a profitable standpoint. So they're going to want to see strong net profits that increase. Like for my business, I did 100% year over year growth for revenue, and so that was really really attractive to the potential buyers I was interviewing. And then also the intellectual property element. A lot of people don't think about going beyond trademarks. So in my business, I had multiple design patents and had multiple that were kind of in process. The reason why you want to kind of think about that is a design patent anyone can file if it's a unique design for an existing product. So it doesn't even need to be a brand new product. And so a lot of people are like, oh, patents are for like inventions. That's not necessarily true. So utility patent, covers every aspect of that unique product. But a design patent, it could be, a baseball mitt with a very unique design on the baseball mitt, and then you can get a patent for that. And so the beauty of that is that so much on Amazon is people copying each other.
Mm.
And so if you can, have some sort of intellectual protection for your products, and it does take time. It can take up to 12 months, to get a design patent. But once you have that design patent, you can use that, to the benefit of your business. And if you see someone that literally copied your design, well, you can shut them down in 2 seconds on Amazon. So it's a fantastic tool to protect your ideas and all that energy you put into your business to create a unique product. So that was something that definitely helped. And then the third element definitely was, having multiple brands. And then the buyer wanted to make sure that there was an even revenue spread across each of the brands. So those are the top three things.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's super cool to see. All right, well, we're going to wrap this up, but any last thoughts on that whole process, or any other thing that jumps to mind that you'd like to pass on?
Yeah. I think for the exit, it's just be 100% transparent. Don't hold back any information, and just come across as just a true, honest, strong business owner. That is going to play in your favor. I think a lot of people get scared or paranoid that if the buyer sees something, you actually want the buyer to see everything. And the reason why is because you're going to have a relationship with the buyer for most likely a year after the sale of the business. So it's not like, you wash your hands and you're done. So just establishing that transparency and honesty from day one of interviews with potential buyers is huge.
Yeah, that's a really, really good piece of advice. And don't be scared of the mistakes and being transparent on that, because then they know about them, which is
Yep.
great. So
Yep.
amazing. And all right, so you sold the business. Well, what was next for you? What's been happening?
Yeah. So I kind of had kind of an interesting change of career. So I went from construction management to, selling on Amazon, and then I exited. And then during the process of training the buyer of my business, I just found that it was just kind of an interesting way to spend time, helping someone understand from just the very basics of Amazon and grow up to be an expert. And they're definitely, after almost a year now of training, they're definitely at they're nearing expert level on Amazon, and growing, a very successful business now. And so I kind of started thinking about like maybe doing some sort of like one-on-one consulting, and ended up taking a 6-month sabbatical and spent time with family, and just kind of had a mental reset, after years of Amazon. And then recently, about 4 months ago, started Black Label Advisor, which is just that. It's a one-on-one consultancy company. And I've seen so many just huge conglomerate agencies that are out there. And then I've also seen just, obviously the gurus with Lamborghinis and things like that, just with these crazy expensive courses, and wanted to provide something different. And so I just felt like there was a need in the market for someone who's just transparent, honest, charges hourly. There's no long-term contracts. And basically I work with new sellers and veteran sellers doing millions to guys in between. And the mission of every phone call I have with my clients is just to, get through those challenges and help them succeed and grow their business for whatever their ultimate goal is.
Awesome. Yes, it sounds like you're in the business of building things, whether it was construction or Amazon, and
Yeah.
you're in the business of being passionate about things. And it sounds like this latest one is definitely a passion project for you. And yeah, there's so many, as a seller myself, there's so many mistakes you can make, and having that guidance is critical. And whether you're launched or growing your business, I think as quickly as you can make money on Amazon, you can lose it if you make the wrong moves. So I'm sure that's extremely valuable. So how do they get hold of you?
That's super easy. If you go to www.blacklabeladvisor.com, there's a contact page at the bottom of the site. And then if you want to email me, it's JONELDR@blacklabeladvisor.com. So those are the two quickest ways to get a hold of me. And then I'm also on Facebook. You just search Black Label Advisor and find me that way as well.
Excellent, man. And little tip: if you send him a bottle of Black Label whiskey, you'll get quicker service. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, yeah. Thank you so much, man. I think there's a lot there, and this is what this podcast is about. It's about inspiration, and for sure there's inspiration here.
Awesome.
In just getting it right and making that sale. I think that's an amazing place to be, and well done.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.